There are two targets. Strength unknown. The location is Dongting City. Let's talk about the inside of the picture. The female figure of Team 15 began to distort, turned into the back of an old man and a young man. Meanwhile, in a small courtyard somewhere on the outskirts of Dongting Lake, Yu Taishan and Huang Liang here sucked the livelihood of an ordinary couple. Then a chess game was played in vain in this courtyard. Suddenly, Yu Taishan said, "The three Gaohaoguang who met at the Fighting Law Conference. I didn't expect these young students to be able to patrol here." He couldn't help but be vigilant. But Huang Liang said that those people had good qualifications. There are even great supernatural treasures in the body. It should be an important disciple of the Daemon sect. Killing is likely to lead to ominous trouble. As he spoke, Yu Taishan suddenly shook his hand and made the stone. A water tank in the corner of the wall shattered. A little boy inside was revealed. Although Yu Taishan has completed the vitality, but it has become a habit to show artists every day, even in the face of children. He won't stay the slightest. With a knife slashed through, the boy was cut off by the waist. Instantaneously there was no life. For nirvana, ordinary people are like domestic animals raised in captivity. They can be disposed of at their disposal, or even such a pastime, like Zhao Yin and Shangguan Shao, barely able to keep his heart. It's a rarity. That's when it happened. Barlow's near and far hands found them. The voices of Chiaki and others were heard inside. At the moment, the other 49 teams have promised to come back to help. And so it goes. Half of the task assigned by Master Pan has been completed. It turned out that when Pan Nanjun found 7 people before, a target was set for several people, infected with all the major factions of today. There are 50 young disciples with natal powers, 1,000 ordinary Dharma seekers, 1 million mortals. Reach it, and you'll complete it. After that, they can disperse. And the prize is freedom. You know how much this owl is in front of you. He is so strong that he tries to live day by day. Now, at the same time when Huang Liang got in touch with Qinxiu and others, when the inn is in 3, Xiaoyu also received a summons from the owner of the 1,000 Chicken Pavilion. The ring finger is briefly elaborated. From learned about the Jade Dream at the quadripartite conference. The 3 Ash fell into deep thought. I don't even know such a person. What does that dream depend on? But Nameless reminded a few people. The 9 Realms Gate is not a good person. Don't believe all that is said. And he was suspicious of the mage who appeared in Dongting City. It may be related to the 9 Realms Gate. So let the 3 Little Wisdom wait and see what happens. If there is an irresistible risk, run away immediately. However, Gao Haoguang felt it. The timing of this temperature. It's a bit too much in sync with the season of Dofeiji. And the last day of the Fighting Law Conference. It will be global in nature. The sea and mountains on the side also took the gun road. Although the security check is also the strongest ever. But in the end, I didn't even understand how to spread it. It's really the excesses of the Dick disaster. Nameless was silent. This ceremony was also mentioned at the meeting of the quadripartite. No one believed that it was just a coincidence. However, the conclusion of the discussions between the various forces is also to wait and see. Suddenly Nameless seemed to remember something. With an excited expression, he said that the premonition of the Sprinkle family came. This coincidence is absolutely misleading. The tiger god beside him saw this. I swore that the hall owner's hunch was very accurate. Just before the hostel for a few people. The owner said that these days are sunny and suitable for travel. But his voice was weak, and it rained heavily. The Nameless man was angry, looked up to the sky, and said angrily, "Sprinkle the family and the ancestors." However, the outrage was not far away. And drowned in the rain. The world of supernatural powers is still the same. But this world is not just for supernatural people. Cause and effect connect everyone. In a sufficiently long causal relationship, anyone is possible. Intentionally or unintentionally, it becomes the key to a big event. Like you and me. For example, it is hidden deep in. every living being in every corner of the world. This is a story that takes place in the mountains. A certain day, Lu Xiaotu sent his brother Lu Dadi out to study medicine. But on the way, he met the He family father and son. They are the rich men of the land. Several people passed by. He Gongzi was in too much of a hurry. His clothes were torn by a branch on the side. The younger brother Lu Xiaotu saw that he was very good. He hurriedly took off the rag and rubbed it carefully. The fineness and smoothness of the rag he had never seen before. Lu Xiaotu was very happy. He decided to use this piece of cloth to mend the worn clothes on your body. Seeing this, the elder brother next to him scolded Lu Xiaotu for not being productive. He also said that he would wait until he returned from studying in the mountains this time. So he picked up his brother and left here. Go and see the century beyond the mountain. Lu Xiaotu smiled happily. His eyes were full of longing. Before leaving, he said that he wanted to give his brother a farewell gift. Emperor Lu has some differences. He was curious about his younger brother, who couldn't read big characters. What kind of gift can be given? Saw Lu Xiaotu. He pointed to the two smiles that had been drawn on his eyelids earlier. Smiled innocently. Spring goes and autumn comes. A year has passed in a flash. When Emperor Lu returned from his studies, saw that his younger brother had become a prisoner. They were even detained by officers and soldiers and paraded through the streets. The people on the side of the street were talking. Said that he and the eldest son of his grandfather's family had a strange disease. No matter how you treat it, you can't cure it. Dr. Zhang, who used to be a doctor in the village, said, it was done by the church spirit. That's the kind that can pass through the hair strands or uneven clothes to cast a curse and evil protector spell. People don't know what's true or not. After all, the evil art was just listening to the old man's tea, mentioned after the meal. In the end, he was with his grandfather on Lu Xiaotu. Found the inconvenience of He Gongzi's clothes. Suspected that he was jealous of the He family's wealth and land. Then he used the soul teach spell trap. What a hometown. So they seized him and paraded him through the streets. 2 days later, he was beheaded at the entrance of the vegetable market for public display. However, the villagers all know Lu Xiaotu's personality. It is also clear that he has been wronged. But what can you know? The other party is a rich man and an official. Lu Xiaotu's heart is like ashes at the moment. Suddenly, he saw his brother who had returned. But he had no words. Just walked by silently. After walking a long way, he turned back and smiled, as if to say, brother, get out of here. There's no reason to come back in the future. Emperor Lu saw this. There was hatred and unwillingness in his eyes. So he found the royal brother who was taking care of his younger brother. I want to use my whole net worth to buy a life for land. However, after all, Lu Xiaotu is the person named by the family to kill. No matter how good the gold is. The Jade clan did not dare to let people go without permission. Emperor Lu listened to the big silver tooth bite. It's like something was decided. 2 days passed in a flash. Today is the day Lu Xiaotu was beheaded. Noon that day. The entrance to the market was full of people. I know that there will be grievances in this chess. However, people tacitly choose to stand on the sidelines. It seems that such tragedies are commonplace. Lu Xiaotu was pressed by the Jade clan and walked behind the guillotine. But before he came to power, rely on the material on its body to liberate. Lu Xiaotu was full of doubts. But the Jade clan didn't explain. Just let it go quickly. Get out of here forever. Lu Xiaotu, who lived for the rest of his life after the catastrophe, dared to wait for a long time. He took his hat and left in a hurry. However, when passing by the vegetable market, only to find that a person was already kneeling on the guillotine. Lu Xiaotu looked at him. I suddenly felt a heart-rending pain. Because of the man on the stage. It was his elder brother, Emperor Lu. That day, the final decision he made was to exchange his life for his life. Before dying, my brother closed his eyes. There are also 2 smiles on the eyelids. My brother is getting out of here. The elder brother also gave him a farewell gift. This means that the TV is in a hurry. Another year has passed. On this day, the house is lit up. There is a festive atmosphere everywhere. It turns out that today is Master He's birthday. Master He and Master He are positive. Warm hospitality to guests. Listen to one more gunshot. Bullets froze through the heads of father and son. The wedding feast instantly turned into mulberry leaves. In an instant, the news spread all over Psy. But because the He family does a lot of evil on weekdays, there are too many people to offend. The government has no way to investigate. Of course, I don't know who fired the shot. It was a year ago that the He family used the reason of teaching souls. The stupid boy who killed him. You know how perverted this man in front of you is. He often infiltrated mass graves. Eat the corpses that have just been buried. In Dongting City at this moment, the three little ones stood on the roof of the inn, far from jumping on the fighting platform in the center. Even if it rains heavily, the fighting law conference was still held as scheduled. Hui Zai and the others were a little worried. This is a big deal. Is it really just misleading, as the owner said? And the three small ones were also found, based on the missing persons in this Dongting City. And there are no noticeable changes. There is no trace of the mage's crime. But the mage who attacked them that day, definitely more than three. It stands to reason that so many mages are nearby. There will inevitably be a large number of seizures, remnants of living corpses. And it was turned into a corpse of a monster insect before. No follow-up clues were found. It's all weird. Suddenly, the tiger god asked, missing persons under the jurisdiction of Dongting Street. Is there a possibility that it has not been counted? The seamount pondered a little. Subsequently, it was said, there were only hunting prey in the mountains, and mountain people who avoid taxes. But if that's the case, they still don't know where to start. You can only passively wait for the mage's action. Just when the three little ones were burnt out. In this and somewhere in Dongting City, Chiaki and the others are planning tonight. Bring him and his squad of seekers to the dream of prison. To be on the safe side, they decided to wait until that was over. The group left the place. Continue to spread in another city. I suddenly wanted to come to the arrival of the 10,000 Leaves Corpse Immortal. 2 opportunities are needed. It will be done in no time. That's when it happened. Chiaki suddenly discovered there was no windbreak in the inn. The Kullian heavenly sword tyrant beside him hurriedly spoke. Fengpa felt the pressure of the successive actions in recent days has been too great. So I went out to decompress. Although the mage survives on human life, but most of them are just extracting life. No interest in human flesh and blood. I even feel disgusting, but Fengpa often uses this as a snack. It's called decompression. Meanwhile, a girl walks into the mass grave. It was Ergwa who braved the rain to visit his brother. Because of illiteracy, he just carved a crooked one on the tombstone. Twist 3 words. In the noisy sound of rain, Ergwa said one by one. Those discarded things that I saw at the fighting law conference. Didn't notice that it was behind him at the moment. A pair of cold eyes were firmly locked on him. Fengpa looked at the little girl in front of him, who was full of life. Suddenly, I felt that the meat in my hand had become tasteless. After that, he wanted to take the girl's life. But at the moment when it was working, the ghost paint skin that covered him began to distort. This change made Fengpa wake up instantly. We are now at the critical juncture of our tasks. Never be impulsive by your own consciousness, causing accidents. And yet at this moment, Fengpa's eyes suddenly flashed with a hint of red. Then he stared at the girl in front of him in amazement. Since getting the temperature given by Pan Nanjun, he can pass through it. Briefly senses the conspiracy lines of others. I never thought about the girl in front of me. It's still linked to the natal red line. And there are as many as 3 of them. That's what it means. There are 3 Genshin with natal powers. There is a key connection to it. And it is a level that can affect life. And the red line is so clear. And there is no sign of going away. It should be the windbreaker arrow that was established not long ago. This directory stars. And so it goes. There are 3 more goals given by Master Pan. Let's talk about it. Wind broke his mouth and spat out a cloud of golden substance from his mouth. This thing is the primordial temperature of a rare dream. Then he silently walked behind the girl and passed the temperature out. Urgwa didn't notice anything unusual about this. Nature is even more invisible. Now, linked to the end of the red line of the 3 lives behind him. Suddenly, a golden retriever lit up. Then the golden retriever began to seek use and failed. It's like a lit fuse. Begin to stretch in a certain direction. Exine hurriedly passed through layers of rain and fog. Finally came to Dongting Street. Meanwhile, 3 small ones are considering. Do you want to use a great magic spell again? Come find the mage hiding in the shadows. Time is of the essence after all. They can't sit still. But suddenly, Gao Haoguang seemed to sense something. Fiercely picked up the martial arts award. Dodge. Dodged the 3 causal lines that suddenly attacked. The difference between Haishan Chat and Wu Dashan Catalog. They don't know why Fai Tsai is like this. It seems to be fundamental. I can't see the line of cause and effect in the air. Zhang Haoguang didn't have time to explain at the moment. Reach out and push the 2 of them away. Cause and effect constitution. Ben is looking for their natal red line. It is simply impossible to hide. Seeing the unknown fall into one's own body or others. The high consumption was shocked and couldn't hide. And the Dharmakaya doesn't have any perception either. Could it be an illusion? Just now, he clearly felt a hint of causal green fluctuations. The 5 major provinces have a natal supernatural power to bleed. It's a small world of its own. Grams inside. Just a few golden beams hit the tea of the 3 little ones. Gao Haoguang observed. I felt a hint of causal green fluctuations. Other words, these 3 trees of golden light came along Wadin Valley. The 2 seas and mountains on the side looked solemn. Ask Fai Tsai what he saw. What happened? Gao Haoguang then understood. The golden beam of light was visible only to himself. Didn't explain too much. He leapt deep onto the roof. Barely visible through the dense rain curtain. The beam of light came from outside Dongting City. Gao Haoguang was puzzled. When this thing enters the body, their Dharmakaya does not have the slightest perception. It's like a squeak, or something hallucinating. Could it be that this is the poison of Nanming? After making a decision in my heart, Huitsai beckoned Haishan and the tiger god to hurry up. The tiger god was puzzled, but Haishan said to follow first. He trusts Fai Tsai unconditionally. I knew he must have found something, and at this moment, in the eyes of Huizai, the trajectory of those beams is gradually getting larger. They have to be a little faster. At the other end of the beam, it is very likely that it is the minions of Kazuha's lost line. 3 small figures quickly shuttled across the roof. Gradually, the bustling attic is gone. Instead, it's a dense forest that stretches as far as the eye can see. On the other side at the same time, Windbreak returns to where he used to be. Dispose of the half-eaten corpse he had eaten. This trip out, it infected 3 targets at once. It made him very happy. That's when it happened. The 3 little ones also looked for 3 beams. Came to this dense forest. However, the cylinder with a beam of light comes out inside. But it made several people feel a little incredible. The unknown tiger god smiled innocently. Said that isn't that the second melon little sister? Gao Haoguang's eyes flashed. He couldn't figure it out. Why is the inner light tree associated with the 2 melons? But suddenly there was a gust of wind. Let Gao Haoguang capture the inner strand in the air. The smell of blood. He instructed the 2 men behind him to lurk and follow. Then he was the first to dodge. Look in the direction where the smell of blood came from. It didn't go far just after flying out. Then he saw a figure in the dense forest. Gao Haoguang tightened his body. Instant approach. At first glance, the person in front of him should be a punisher. But for some reason, it always feels a little weird. Feng Pu also recognized the person in front of him at this moment. That's before. One of the 3 imps that appear in Pan Nanjuan's tomb. but I don't know why he found this place. He was unfortunate to be a prodigy given by Pan Nanjun. Can be detected and tracked. Gao Haoguang glanced at this person. He turned his gaze to the gnawed corpse. Feng Pa hurriedly explained. I'm just passing by. Smelling blood, curiosity came. He didn't know if he could get by. But I know that as long as there is 1,000 years of nonsense, even if it's a great supernatural person, neither from the appearance nor the breath, aware of his identity as a mage. However, at the moment when he spoke, Gao Haoguang was keenly aware. The smell of blood coming from its mouth. Without the slightest hesitation, directly draw your sword and slash at the person in front of you. Wei's eye decisively exceeded the power of Feng Pa. He knew it was just a temptation, but he didn't dare to hide. Your dodge instantly distances you. Gao Hao's light sword lord continued to probe tentatively. You've probably seen the magic weapon in my hand. Windbreak knows. This kid is talking about the previous attack and killing. But look closely. The sign on the hilt of the sword. He really seems to have seen it somewhere. But it doesn't matter right now, because he must get rid of this kid today. Seeing the mage reveal his true form, Gao Haoguang breathed a sigh of relief. As he expected, this person is not a great magic mage. After all, you can't even control the vice of cannibalism. And at the moment when the wind broke and revealed its true body, behind it, suddenly, a 1,000-shot puppet appeared. It also appears to be holding a glass ball in its hand. Thunder and thunder break the opportunity to react. The puppet threw the object out of his hand. This thing is the tiger god's natal supernatural power. The moment when the glass ball comes into contact with abundance, bounce off violently. Immediately after that, his figure changed into a divine spirit. Be sucked into that supernatural power. At the same time, the two of them also approached. Martial God Chun Sheng opened his mouth and said, "This guy is very strong. I can't help but wear it out. He will definitely be able to break through an inch of armor in a short time." The two seamounts on the side remind that if you are 80% sure, it is used to capture the fire port and obtain information. If there are no 8 achievements, it will be destroyed. One of the 3 is in control of the time. One person controls the space. One person masters cause and effect. What a dick disaster. Look inside this little glass ball. There is an independent event with its own space. At this moment, with the wind breaking, he was trapped in an inch of home. The 3 little ones also made a decision. If they can't be captured alive, then silence it. Let's talk about it. Several figures flashed and came to this inch of home. Wu Dashin looked at the wind in front of him. Chi-Chi's laughter claimed that the man was stupid. The smell of blood was all around the cemetery. How could it be possible to smell that the body was left by him? Zhang Xiaofeng is also a ruthless person. Raising his hand, he hit 2 large wall pockets in his face. The 3 little ones were a little confused about the situation in front of them. But seeing that he was fighting more and more, he became more and more energetic. Haishin asked intimately that the dick disaster wanted to help. Please say a word about it. Half an hour passed for Jomo. The wind broke before he stopped. Exhaled a deep breath of turbidity. Then he said to the 3 little ones, "I atone for the words I just spoke. If you don't reflect often, one day he will die of arrogance." Said to use his talent directly. 3 imps in front of you. They are all geniuses with natal powers. He's got to give it his all. With the wind breaking unreservedly. A powerful crow. In an instant, the entire 1-inch home was flooded. The 3 little ones only felt a little tricky. So it seems. It's unlikely that the mouth will be caught alive. And the tiger god wants to devote his energy to maintaining this heaven and earth. So at most, you can only play on the side. At the same time, an inch outside the home, the glass ball transformed by the supernatural powers attracted the attention of a crow. Wu Dashin scolded angrily a few times, trying to drive the gas away. But such a shiny thing. It is especially pleasing to crows. Wu Da was angry, but for now they must. You have to focus on the battle in front of you. The Great War is on the verge of breaking out. Both sides perceive the other's trickiness. Therefore, once you make a move, you will no longer have the slightest reservation. It was just the moment when a few people came into contact. Brilliant tree-red light erupted from this side of the world. And on the other hand, beyond supernatural powers, heavy rain still enveloped the entire Dongting city. The splendor inside the glass beads. It's so small at the moment. This supernatural world is big and big. It's small and it's small. It's amazing. Meanwhile, the five gods stood in front of the small family and went through the past together. He grew up in the Senki Pavilion. Every day in addition to hard practice. There are no waves in life. Until that year. For the first time, the Golden Temple took the tiger rope out of 1,000 mechanisms. Went to a small town down the hill. The world in his eyes has never been more expansive. It's also more interesting. Although later it was stolen. But not for long. Tiger de Rope found the thieves. And taught them a lesson. But then I learned again. The thieves hadn't eaten in days. Wu Dashan took a few people to steal things together. Became the leader of their day. In the evening, the great god is going back to Sister Meow. He told his men to go home as well. Because the leader is going home. Then, he didn't know why some of his men were crying. Why are you still delaying going home? Until he grew up a little more. Understand the wandering and this existence. He was back in that town. Only to find that the prime ministers are long gone. After all, it wasn't their home either. If it is said that the seeker has the destiny, divine seeds require talent. So what will it become to influence the natal supernatural power? It depends on your own will and memory. That moment, the seeds in the heart of the tiger god began to sprout. With years of practice, that opportunity finally grew into a man who was completely under his control. A space independent of reality. The god of martial arts hopes for this inch of home. It can provide shelter for your partner. But the next moment, two sounds of breaking the air sounded. The small home of the great god was stolen. Two people flew back from the sea and mountains. The sound of smashing. The tiger god who was immersed in the warmth broke the house in an instant. He yelled at the two little fixing eyes. Even if he was shot away, he was not allowed to fly to his house. Gray gulls don't have the mind at all. Their attention. It's all on top of the oncoming tentacles. With the blessing of the 3 true realm treasures. Wield the sword in your hand. There are many changes. Do your part. Blocked the wind. Breaking the inside like a storm of strong offensives. The tiger god who masters a small world. How strong it can be. But this world. He is the mystery that can make all things. An inch of home at the moment. Countless just seals swept through the wind. Exert his magical powers to contain Gao Haoguang at the same time. And use the scattered tentacles. Try to break the shot of an inch of armor. Wuda Divine Sword Tyrant's expression is on the way. Although the attack power of this tentacle alone, unable to break his supernatural powers. But if you leave it alone, it will inevitably accelerate his mana consumption. Let's talk about it. He raised his hands and stood in front of his chest to bring the number to the number. Light is everywhere. The hands then snapped together towards Zhongxing. The next moment, the rock formations where Dongpa is located begin to riot. It's like 2 giant palms. So. He asked him in the palm of his hand. In this inch of home, the great god of martial arts is the creator. The sea and mountain birds exclaimed in amazement. At the same time, a Penglai bird snatcher talisman was shot from the show. With the containment of the great god Fu, the captive landed precisely above Windbreak's head. This time, the seamount deliberately narrowed the scope of the law, in order not to affect Fai Tsai. Next, the speed of the supernatural power is displayed. Gao Haoguang was already speaking. Fu Lu in his hand turned into more than a dozen blades. On the other hand, the windbreaks. Under the influence of Penglai's natal law, he thought a few rose slower than the rest. Back to the differences that come with calligraphy. He reacted. Meanwhile, an inch plus suddenly remembered a thunderclap. Frightened the crows. The glass ball also detached from the 7 mouths, began to fall downward, go round and round. The 3 little ones returned to this daunting city. An inch of home looks at the emptiness in front of him. The 3 little ones were more vigilant. They are unlucky. It can be solved so easily in the French way. And the humidity that permeates the room, and not half a point weakened. I was thinking about it suddenly. Behind Hui's eye, a tentacle fierce bone rises. Immediately after that, the figure of Feng Pa burst out of the fog. Gao Haoguang's Dharma body sensed the danger for the first time. But there is a mental calculation and unintentional. Still sturdy to eat the blow of the windbreak. A mouthful of blood gushed out uncontrollably. Immediately after that, he slaughtered like the falling actress. Slammed into the ground. Seal and expand the filial piety of this tomb. This Heavenly Father is supernatural. I hope it didn't wedge your appetite. Let's talk about it. His figure began to move between the tentacles at high speed. Because of the speed, near the 3 little ones, more than a dozen afterimages were formed. It's hard to capture his location. On the other hand, Gao Haoguang just punched. Luckily, he sensed something. Otherwise, even if you don't die, you will be seriously injured. But now I know it. This mage's prodigy. The 5 great divine swords were unharmed. At the same time of relief, don't forget to erect a monument for him. The mockery of the turtle cub was speechless. When is it? Also put energy. Wasted in these bizarre places. Meanwhile, the strongest sea and mountain therapy of the Dharma body. It's hard to part with the wind. Those tentacles are like high-speed tunnels. Causes Windbreaker to teleport on it at will. The sea mount also tried to destroy the tentacles in the past. But even if the tricky thing is destroyed, the tentacle can also be restored in an instant. The sea and the mountains looked dusty when they saw this. If it weren't for this, the mage would only have to comply with this tentacle. I'm afraid he has already decided on this matter. And these tentacles grow faster than they can be. What a disaster. But I don't know. At this moment, Feng Po's inner consciousness was difficult to calm down. He was glad that he hadn't made a rash move in the cemetery that day. Otherwise, it is very likely to be planted in the hands of this Penglai boy. Between words, Haishin held the magic weapon in both hands and said that the flower broke the second decision towards the wind. But it was. A hand that suddenly appeared in front of him was firmly locked. Meanwhile, Windbreak's figure teleported behind him. Another punch fell on the sea and mountain. Instantly perceived the punch of the tough guy who turned around. It's just that solid feel. It made him feel as if he was receiving a cannonball. The 2 branches of the sea and mountains that flew out of the road were difficult to top. After stabilizing his body, he immediately jumped up. Then he pulled out a dozen of Penglai from his sleeve. The next moment, this space was enveloped by the French position. Since the flesh can't be compared, then use supernatural powers to pile up death. This mana field only exists for 1 second. But for the addition of seamount birds. Everything else. But it's 3 seconds. Sea, mountain birds, natal powers, bleeding. You can borrow the natal power of the previous owners of Penglai. At this moment, with the sea and seamount, there is no room for unfolding. Penglai snatched the bird Buddha that was broken by the wind. The area covered is almost all shrouded in a mana field. Time in this space began to slow down. But the seamount itself was not affected in the slightest. He knew it instantly. The figure of the wind breaking is about to teleport out. The sea and the mountains are hurrying forward. The wind broke and teleported out. But he never appeared in the mana field again. Scope covered. The sea and mountains are clear in an instant. The mage went underground. Let's talk about it. He hurriedly gave birth to alert the 2 on the ground. Looking at the surging wind in front of him. High light consumption and the ancient gods are waiting for the influence of the wind. At the same time as the wind broke through the ground. Straight punch out of the sea and mountain. Sword Tyrant also turned his attention to this place. But the next moment, Feng Po's figure disappeared abruptly again. At the time of its appearance, It was already behind the sea and mountain bird. Although Fa Sheng instantly sensed the danger. But it was too late. Feng Po's solid punch has come to the eye. The sea and the mountain are taken by hand. But it was still bombed and flew out. Gao Hao's light sword lord hurriedly stepped forward to take it down. But Nai's mountain-like gathering power shook his heart. Hui Tsai made a decision in an instant, and he had to unload his strength. Said to twist his body along the force. Throw the sea and the mountain out again. After such a depletion, Haishan finally controlled his body. Fall steadily. Then he couldn't help but glance at Hui Tsai more. Marvel at how good it is. On the contrary, I saw that Pang Man's boy was unharmed. Feng Pu was a little lost. He thought it was a punch. It can be smashed to pieces. Then he catches the brain with his mouth. Haishan Liao only felt a chill. Qinghe snorted twice. Said in the next big-headed fairy, I haven't asked for your life yet. Feng Pu was a little puzzled. But I heard the Pungan boy in front of him speak again. The big head calls you daddy. Don't use it for you or me. How about innate supernatural powers and natal supernatural powers? The high-consumption lightsaber dismissed the teacher's face with a look of shame. He seems to have seen this meeting somewhere. But the sea and the mountain said, calling dad is the art of the big flute. It's like after naming a cat or dog. It's like softening their hearts. As long as this method is used, the enemy will definitely be soft-hearted towards the seamount. I think so. The 5 great divine swords are overbearing and sick. Of course, there are also crazy women who think the same way. He thinks the damn head is entertaining himself. Haishan's sword overlord's gaze gradually became cold. Then he started Peng Lai's 3rd set of radio gymnastics. But he didn't get a chance at all. Interrupted his master directly. Haishan sighed helplessly. Okay. If you don't let you warm up, don't let it. With that, he put away the flowers in his hand. Then the law was decided. The next moment, a layer of mystical energy is like that picture scroll. It spreads out in all directions centered on the sea and mountain birds. Meanwhile, the pupils of the wind broke violently. He was so young. Cast the natal supernatural power. I felt a hint of the smell of the great psychic person, and Haishan Liao realized the opportunity of this fateful supernatural power. It has to start with when he was a child. As the 7th son of Peng Lai, he is. I grew up in Peng Lai Mishima since I was a child. That year was an addition to the arduous practice. His life took other turns as well. Father in his ginseng. I watched the portraits of the owners of Peng Lai in the past, and said to him as a father, you are the only one of the 8 children who became a Dharma seeker. And at the same time, it has been recognized by Peng Lai's natal law. If in the future, your natal powers are also powerful enough, I should be the next owner after me. So for the sake of teaching, how about the sea mounts? Become a qualified lord of Peng Lai. His father, Hai Zhengfeng. It will be the life of the owner of Peng Lai Island in the past. It's all about it one by one. I didn't even let go of all kinds of parents. That's 60 days. But for the seamount bird, it seems like 60 years have passed. Every time he tried to escape, he was caught. At that time, he really wanted to rebel. But fortunately, it's not all boring. What my father told about Peng Lai. Outside the story, it's rare to be fresh and interesting. One of the most interesting. Yes, one. The owner of the island more than 000 years ago. He is a prominent special among the owners of the island, because he has spent most of his life outside the island. The story of his travels around the world. It's exciting enough. And during his tenure as the owner of the island, Peng Lai ushered in an unprecedented catastrophe. Countless powerful mages besieged the 3 islands of Peng Lai. It was devastating. Okay. At that time, a friend of his from outside the island came to help. Peng Lai Mishima survived the catastrophe safely. Later, Haishan learned about it. That person's name was Chang's Wanfa Immortal Monarch. The sect to which it belongs is the 3 Chastity Method. And the natal method of the 3 Chastity is the 3 Chastity Precept Treasure Method. In those 60 days, talent, and will quietly planted the seeds, waiting for hard work and hope to become nourishment. The moment it sprouts, as the spell is fully unfolded, countless pictures appeared behind Haishin, but only on the first 2 scrolls. There are 2 different seamounts in different periods. This is his natal supernatural power. Hypothetical mountain and sea charts back then. The sea mountain bird reached out and touched the scroll. The next engraving begins to distort, and out of it stretched out a small white hand. The big head's eyes flashed. Then he clenched his little hand and pulled it out of the scroll. This is a small sea mountain bird from childhood. The effect of the big head's natal supernatural powers. It is to make this little sea and mountain bird the natal master in the body. It is assumed to come from a certain predecessor in Panglai, and let this seed germinate quickly, thus borrowing the natal cylinder of the predecessors. To put it simply, it is borrowing. Theoretically, Shanghai mountain materials can be borrowed from Panglai for generations. The natal god of 60 island owners. The 3-needle boundary protection method with the 3-needle method. There is a hint of the same song. You know the contemporary. How rebellious the young master of Panglai is. He was able to borrow Panglai, the natal cylinder of the island owners of the past generations. And in front of me, this small sea and mountain drawn by supernatural powers. The assumption is that it is the 19th generation of the owner of Panglai. Haihua Yao's natal supernatural power is the decree of the great realm. But because of the little sea and mountain's natal supernatural powers, it's just assumed that it comes from him. And at present, the sea and mountains themselves are not great gods. It can show the power of the great mirror decree. Just the tip of the iceberg. So for the time being, let's change it to the little mirror decree. Between words, little Haishin's face was already wrinkled. It's as if it was a tribute to milking. I barely managed to squeeze out a small beam of light bath. Then Haishin raised his hand. The spell went straight through the air. Fengqua Sword Tyrant was shocked in his heart. His punishment. After coming into contact with the supernatural powers of the Panglai kid, it began to ablate rapidly, and cannot be regenerated. But it didn't take long for him to see Duan Yin's magical powers. It seems to only work for things that have the law, saying that the wind breaks the spell to control the body. Lift a boulder seat to resist. Even if this tree method is contained, there is also a hint of supernatural powers. But after all, it's not really a supernatural power. However, he missed a fatal key. In this inch of home, the god of martial arts is the creator, with its pinching hands excavated. Inside is a mountain-like boulder. He opened a hole on his own. The little quiet decree passed through it without hindrance, directly hit the spirit that wanted to teleport and escape. Meanwhile, Wu Dashan's expression was a little trance-like. Maintained the natal prodigy for a long time. His mana was running out. And the other side, after being hit by a little Jingfa, all the laws that the wind breaks out, it is like a withered one, began to wither away. This is one of the effects of the little quiet decree. Talent forbidden. It's just a few breaths. All the spells in this world have withered. The body of the windbreak has finally been fully revealed. The spell from his chest imprisoned all his prodigies, and it can't be unlocked in a short time. The look of Feng Pe at the scene revealed solemnity. Then he turned his attention to the small seamount. He knew he wanted to break the lockdown. This little doll has to be destroyed. It's like feeling danger. It's a little seamount, silently retreated behind the 3 little ones. Although at this moment, the prodigy of Feng Pe was temporarily suppressed. But the sea. There is not much mana left of the mountain and the ancient gods. Feng Pe obviously saw this as well. Directly break through the air and approach. Even if you can't use supernatural powers. But the mage's body is inherently strong. It's not like he doesn't have the strength to fight. Feel the force of the punch. Wu Dashan and Haishin are both ministers in their hearts. Even if there is no internal law department, the speed of this cargo is still so outrageous. Gao Hao's light sword on the side hurriedly ran the technique. It was at the moment of its exhibition. Windbreak dodged again. After a few sharp turns, appeared on Gao Haoguang's side. Wei Zai's sword tyrant had no choice but to put away his magical powers. Mysterious and mysteriously dodged. This episode is unexpected. Windbreaker can twist his body in the air. A solid punch smashed into Gao Haoguang head-on. Fortunately, Hui Zai deployed the destruction sword in time, withstood the blow of this spiritual power. At the same time as flying out, Gao Haoguang shouted at Feng Pu, "Now that you can't use the divine powers, I don't take advantage of you either. I'm not going to use my natal powers. Do you dare to learn life and death one-on-one with me?" He then used his sword to block the bloodthirsty Windbreaker. Towards the back, he said, "Don't interfere. It's a 5-player matchup." However, the two of them knew it instantly. Fai Tsai means let them find an opportunity to sneak attack. Feng Pu said that he admired this little sister. It just so happened that he also wanted to gamble on the dignity of 5 people. An above board, right? Never say so. But in the ancient blade in its hands. But it sealed the black-blooded divine system that he had refined over the years. The danger under normal conditions is stronger. The above north is just a thought. The black blood can be reported as blood. And invade the occurrence of the imp in front of you. Take it to life. It's really a lifetime, and the blades in the hands of the two collide together. Meanwhile, Fai Tsai noticed that the wind-breaking blade began to line up. The next moment, a cloud of blood mist burst out of it. Hui Zai's swordlord body was fierce. Avoid being dissected by blood. However, a frantic punch has followed. That's when it happened. A gust of wind suddenly blew in this inch of the house. The scattered mist of blood was blown into the eyes of the Windbreaker. Meanwhile, a narrator in a bird-snatching suit hit Windbreaker's leg with precision. Obscured by the blood mist, Windbreak wanted to flee. "I found that my speed under my feet was slowed down a lot." Next, Gao Hao, who leaned over and held his sword, burst into flames. A few sword lights streaked through, completely dismember the body of Windbreak. Unimaginable. It's obviously a battle of 3 people in a lifetime. But there are at least 800 of them. The man in front of him had only 1 head left, but he still wants to pull his opponent to the end. With the perfect cooperation of the 3 little ones, finally cut off the body of Feng Pu, but to the surprise of a few people, even if there is only 1 head left, still can't completely extinguish the Windbreak. But the wind is also dangerous. This glimmer of life will always dissipate. He is already certain to die, but as long as he can still think, then you can pull the 3 little ghosts in front of you to accompany the burial. Let's talk about it. He burned the last vestiges of life. Forcible control of the severed limb. Then he slapped his head hard. The majestic distance distorted his countenance. Then, Feng Pu's head turned into a divine red and broke through the air directly towards the small sea and mountain bird behind a few people. Although banned, absolutely talented. But the wind broke back to death. It still made Haishan unexpected. A soft sound of the wind. Wind breaks head directly from his natal life. Passed through the supernatural powers. The mystery of the little sea and mountain began to dissipate. Finally returned to the picture scroll. 5 gods cursed the cunning of monsters in their hearts. Then the law was pinched. The next ground began to churn. The palms of the 2 giant lions burst again, locked the shattered skull fiercely. But even so, Crazy Break's eyes are still as cold as rote. The sea and mountains took out the magic weapon again and called the flower. Pierced Windbreak's skull. Unexpectedly, it was in the stump behind everyone. Suddenly burst out with a burst of majestic energy. On the verge of death, Wind breaks the reckless power to unfold natural powers. Although there is no consciousness, but his body other than his head. Or is it beginning to destroy the world? Spells that are released. The glass beads painted by this inch of home. The backdrop is extraordinarily gorgeous. Inside Dongting City, a few children passing by picked it up. Subsequently, Walk towards the Dofa conference in the center of Dongting Street. And today's fighting method project is called Water Cannon Warring States. Water cannons in the air. It is the confident work of the head of the five elements gate. Monsters can only enter but not exit. And the contestants have to do it. It is to put its own German and Italian magic weapons into it. Try to recall the magic weapon from the water cannon again. The first 3 contestants to be recalled. This is the winner of this game. Finally, the host also emphasized that these are the authentic 5 elements. Authentic and reliable. At the same time, within an inch of the shelf, after the wind breaks and burns all. A spell that can be regenerated continuously. 3 small groups will be the main group. And the worst part, it's a little seamount. You can only borrow the Grand Mirror once a day. And so on. Bring 3 small mana-drained fish. Scared that there was only one way to die. The 5 great sword tyrants have a horizontal heart. He wanted to add these methods 1 inch at a time. But he was stopped by Hui Zai. Haishan Liao on the side also reminded him. It must be consumed in accordance with the FA. Otherwise, this thing will never go away. As he spoke, several people thought of today's fighting FA tribulation. On those big blisters. Throwing this object into it might be possible. Several people made a decision immediately. Quickly flashed out of an inch of home. Wave in a handful. Snatched the glass ball from the hands of several children. It is then thrown into the air. Then it was relayed by the sea and mountain birds that had already jumped up. They have to be fast. Before an inch of home can't hold up. Punch it into the blister. Under the powerful blow of the sea and mountain birds. The glass ball broke through the air. Spells within. At this moment, it has filled the entire inch of the home. Fortunately, the glass ball has now sunk straight into the blister. Seeing this, Wu Dashan hurriedly canceled the prodigy. Suddenly, there was a roar in the sky. Countless magic touches rushed out, trying to break through the blisters. Then the 2 began to consume each other. The covenant contained in each other. I didn't go through the math. There was a sudden thunderclap in the air. The horses in the water cannon began to flow rapidly. Then there was a sudden puncture. And the Dharma within it will eventually disappear completely. A group of contestants took the opportunity to scold this water cannon for being unreliable. So far, Wuxingman inexplicably carried a black cauldron on his back. What is the poet fairy in the middle of the night? He was created by the prisoners themselves. In Dongting City at this moment, with the blisters on the Fighting Law Festival, the bomb bursts. Completely wiped out. Chinchio and others lurking in this Dongting Street. Be the first to notice it. A group of people on the eaves of the moon. He looked solemnly at the General Assembly Center. That's when it happened. The hands left by Barlow broke through the air. And the voice of Huang Liang came from within it. Only then did Huang Liang perceive it. Inside Dongting City. Suddenly a majestic energy was released. So hurriedly asked for information. But I heard a few people reply in a gloomy tone to just now. It was Windbreak's gifted prodigy that was taken out. Huang Liang listened to the Book of Gods and turned into soldiers. He asked a few people if they needed him to come in person. But Chinchio said, even if Huang Liang rushed over at this moment, it would be useless. They don't have any information as to why Windbreaker died. Huang Liang fell silent after hearing this. The hurried on the side suggested, with the strength of their group, enough for the time of one meal. Destroy the entire Dongting City of Dharma Seekers and mortals. Just in case, it's better to pay it back. Don't wait for him to finish his sentence. But he was stopped by bitter words. The task given by Master Pan is to spread the word grace. Before completing the task, don't be so eye-catching. And right now, the Seekers side had to arrange a large number of masters. Go to the decision of the Dharma Assembly on the 5th day. During this time, they can go out at will. The efficiency of spreading the gifts will also be greatly improved. Therefore, do not pay for the Windbreaker. This has attracted the attention of the high level of the Dharma-seeking community. The last few people came to the conclusion that, after the burial master is completed, Find the murderer again as a reward for Fengpo. At the same time inside the tea house, the three little ones dragged their tired bodies out of the door. The golden shopkeeper saw a few people who looked like they were about to enter the coffin. Said jokingly, "Several. I'm afraid it wasn't blown up by the blisters of the fighting platform." But the three little ones didn't pay attention to it at all. They are like three hungry tigers. Pounce on the food on the table. After a storm in clouds, several people were in Urgwa's incredulous eyes. Gracefully walked upstairs. But after filling your stomach, sleepiness suddenly surged. But several people insisted on not letting themselves sleep. If you guessed correctly, the golden beam of light that had just burrowed into the bodies of the three of them. It is the temperature at which the wind breaks. The three little ones are afraid that they will enter the dream of jade when they fall asleep. Oddly enough, even the Haishan Liang, who is the best at the Dharma body, it's hard to hide your sleepiness at the moment. You must know that with his current cultivation, even if you don't sleep for 10 days or 8 days, none of them will have any effect. Treasures. Gao Hao, who was on the side, also spoke tiredly. At first, when I was hit by that temperature, I felt a little sleepy. However, at that time, there was plenty of mana and it could still resist. If he also uses his natal supernatural powers, I'm afraid I'm going to be even more sleepy than the tiger god. Reminiscing about the battle he had just experienced, the three of them couldn't help but retire in their hearts. The strength of the opponent is unexpectedly strong, and there may be a great magic mage among them. That's when it happened. Haishan and the two temples remembered something. After fumbling around in the show, he took out a captive. He had sent a letter to his father asking for help. Now it seems to have returned. Anyway, the light flickered in Fulu. The figure of the main sea of Penglai Island emerged. For the help of the sea and the mountain. His reply was to reply to Penglai and cover you. Don't think I'm going to help if you don't go back. And the Lord of the Silver Boat and the Abbot, also busy with the battle of possible cause and effect. I didn't have time to go there. Rely on yourself and your partners. The stupid sons were a little speechless when they heard it. And before the tiger god asked for help, the host of Qianjigwen is also a similar rhetoric. The sea and mountains all have small mouths. One after another, they said that the great supernatural powers are all beast-faced and beast-hearted. And just as the two of them were talking, the tiger god has fallen asleep to the sea and mountains. The sword lord picked it up. He wanted to send the tiger god back to the room first. Then they went asleep. Since you can't avoid it, then you don't have to. Let's go and see the so-called jade. Outside the window, the rain continued. The entire Dongting city seemed to be mired in a fog. At the same time, Gao Haoguang gradually fell asleep. He will be with the many seekers in this Dongting city. Let's go to the center of the vortex of the supernatural world. The dream of the Lord of Nirvana. This is a reality that does not exist. And untouchable monsters. But he is the source of all cholera. He tried in vain to impose all the seekers of the world. All of them have become nirvana masters who feed on the living machine, so that he may be forever. At this moment, Gao Haoguang fell into a deep sleep. He also entered into that dream of desire. The man on the horse's horse, and the size of a house falling from the sky. Drops of blood then swung together in his mind. Zhang Mingzi once talked about it. What is Wanya Shursen? Since ancient times, it is believed that Manhwa-related exists. It's just a natural phenomenon in the world of supernatural powers. It's like a human being in the face of a natural disaster. It was a good thing to do with the flow. But Xianjun thinks otherwise. At least for himself. Kazuha Shursen is indeed invisible. Monsters you can touch. This is Jiang Mingzi practicing in Jiaohui. When it comes to dispelling the sword of faith, some secret stars to mention at your leisure. He also mentioned that for most Dharma seekers, Manhwa Shursen does not exist in reality. And untouchable. The arrival of true blood is also random. Fate for natural disasters. But that thing has a will. For the living, there is no doubt that it can be counted as malicious. And what Wanya is in advance has never been determined. But there are two arguments that are most recognized by the great powers. It means supernatural powers. Yuan Wei said, in the perception of those people in the supernatural world, especially those who have the power of the law of cause and effect. For example, Zhang Mingzi and Gao Haoguang. Yes, you can perceive it. Everything is enclosed in an invisible vein. And the Dharma seeker can use the mana in his body to influence, manipulating and altering these links, thus influencing all sorts of things. This is supernatural power. And that's what it is. The original fishtail of this vein itself. It is the vision of Manhwa that connects the past and the future. Manhwa Shursen. The mage and the Dharma seeker are one. If it is a complete elimination of the poet immortal avatar event, at the very least, most of the ability to influence events is lost. At worst, the supernatural event will perish. And this second argument is the false theory of cause and effect. This statement argues, Manhwa Shursen itself is the law of cause and effect. Divine powers are abused. The materialization of long-term accumulated causal problems. And with wisdom, he was afraid of the cause and effect. The problem is slowly corrected by the law of cause and effect. That's why Kazuha Shinshu was released to appear in a time and space. As long as the consciousness is in every corner of the self-existence, whether it was the mage of the time, or someone who comes into contact with a mage, all of them have become witnesses of all things. In this way, all karma can pass again, forever in the present and in the future. In fact, bingo battles. It is also a testament to his emphasis on his existence. But no matter which of the above two statements is reliable, or there may be other explanations, I have no doubt about one thing. He wants to imprison all the lawmakers. They all become feeding on the living, and the eternal nirvana, and be controlled by yourself. In this way, the 10,000 leaves of the poet can be forever. When it comes to this, Akiko raised her hand and pointed at herself. Again, Na Wanya wants all the prisoners to become nirvana masters. Also includes this immortal Kuan, and the prodigy of surveillance within the path of inner thinking. It can only be monitored within 100 years. A person who will have a causal connection with the true evil of Manhwa. Like what? If this immortal monarch turns into a mage in your time, then you can't monitor it. With that, Akiko took out a treasure mirror from the show and smiled spontaneously. Right now, both of us have been sure to be locked by true evil. He then flipped the mirror upside down. It is reflected in the same month. Huizai, who is concentrating on refining the small wrist magic sword, will be the name of the claim. If Fai Tsai really ushered in the day of visualization, he will not hesitate in the slightest. Of course, if that day really comes. The unwillingness to destroy Kazuha's sight. Maybe it's enough to make it possible for him to have poetry and painting. That's really the time. He will also destroy himself without mercy. After that, Xianjun suddenly reversed his painting style. Claim it's just what if. This must not be allowed to happen. Gotta kill that thing. End it all before he and Fai Tsai die. Then Xianjun smiled. I think it's a bit funny to talk to Fai Tsai about this. Apparently he was dead in his time. But if you are really in the era of Huizai, it's up to him to eliminate himself. Also a good choice. This is the end of the memory. Gao Hao's impression of looking at the air was just out of his mind. Inside the huge real snow that fell, luckily, there seems to be a figure. You know, why has there never been a perfect prodigy in the world? Because in this supernatural world, not allowed, a creator with a true personality appears. Inside the dream of Jade at this moment, Gao Haoguang looked at the figure inside the blood droplet and was in a trance. Blood then dripped onto the surface of the lake beneath the crowd's feet. The next moment, something appeared under the water. He represents terror, peaceful and crazy, sense and despair. Under this suffocating sense of oppression, Gao Haoguang's body trembled uncontrollably. But even so, I still can't help but want to explore the underwater mysteries. Parlance. There was a hint of confusion on the turtle's pupils, followed by the underwater world of that lake began to become clear. Gradually, a vague dark shadow appeared in his field of vision. Gao Haoguang was shocked to the extreme. I was trying to see the dark shadow underwater, but suddenly there was a rush of rain in my ears. The next moment, Gao Haoguang woke up from his dream. He stood up and was silent for a long time. Unknown mysteries, and the suffocating feeling of oppression haunts me. It can't be dispersed for a long time. About half an hour passed. Gao Haoguang exhaled a deep breath of turbidity. Before that, Haishan, Liao, and Huda provinces also woke up from the prophetic dream. The two of them came to Hui Zai's room again. Discuss what you have seen and heard. The Seamount claimed to dream when though. However, I realized that it was me. But I always feel that my head is blurry. Not even in the crowd. Looking for the self-consciousness of the two Hui Zai. As if it wasn't something I tried. Wu Dashan listened. Ask if the surface of the water is the cave. Haishan Liao is also not sure about this. But from the side is in the prophetic dream. Look at the outfit on your body. Indeed, it is likely to be a scene that is about to happen in the near future. The two were talking. Hu Tingwei asked about the temperature at the opening of his mouth. Can you still feel it? Haishan and the two looked dazed. Because they didn't feel it in the first place. Huizai Jinba talked about his feelings. After he had that dream, the temperature in the body seems to disappear. And the spread of this supernatural power. It should be based on the important relationships between people. Then follow the vein. No matter the distance, hit the original God and carry out dreams. I'm afraid that the great supernatural can't hide from the demons. Hu Dashan secretly rejoiced when he heard this, claiming that it's okay that this is not an attack on supernatural powers. Otherwise, it is more terrifying than the punishment of karma. However, the Seamount said, that's why this supernatural power is so incomprehensible. It can't be an attack on supernatural powers. There is also a cap on supernatural powers. The disadvantages are long, and the disadvantages must be short. For example, Hu Dashan's 1-inch price. If that supernatural mana doesn't cost much, someday, he will grow into the Pangu of that world. Or Nuwa. In reality, there can be no truly personified creator. Or rather, not allowed. This is also the first time I have heard of this statement. Subsequently, he also asked about the difference between the Dharma Seeker and the Mage Primordial Spirit. But Haishan said, the primordial spirits of the two are almost the same. Not even the position of jurisprudence has changed much. The difference is only that one is a living soul. You can generate vitality to feed your body. One is a dead soul. It is necessary to take away the opportunity to support the physical body from being destroyed. Those who are not supernatural, or have special supernatural powers. Otherwise, the seeker will want to distinguish the mage. Generally only according to the strange corpse of the Dharma body that emanated from his body. After listening to the explanation of the Seamount, Gao Haoguang Temple suddenly figured out something. He jerked to his feet. Say you probably know. Why did the enemy stay here? The spirit they had encountered before. It should be very confident. The human skin on the body can hide moisture. Even the inner skin can hide the qualities of Genshin impact. So they can swagger. Appears in Dongting Street. Take advantage of their respective identities. Establish important relationships with other prisoners. And the reason why this group of people have endured it for so long. It's about looking for those who have the potential to be among the elite. People who can be related. Just like Ergwa and a few of them. And then bring these people into that can make the Yuan. The path of thought that establishes a connection between the gods and the primordial gods. Its own temperature is the medium. In passing through those primordial gods 1 past 10. 1000 is like a plague of the primordial gods. This is the largest in history. The pavilion of the Dream Sutra left by the psychic powers. There's a lot to attack within. The number of souls that the people of later generations have realized. But the world doesn't know it. The number of souls in this pavilion. Most of them are made by the 3 true realm treasures. At this moment, after Hui Tsai said his guess, Wu Dashin was shocked. He knew the way of thought very well. Naturally, he knows that if he is used by a mage, what the consequences will be. So Sangxiati decided. Go to the place where the secret of the 10,000 laws is hidden. A few people on the eaves of the moon. Find your way in the rain. But suddenly there is a hidden strain in the 10,000 laws. An earth-shattering bang erupted. The 3 little sword tyrants were dusty in their hearts. It seems that Fai Tsai's speculation is not wrong. The purpose of those mages is this silk path. Let's talk about it. A few of the 3 dodged as they approached the place of the explosion, only to find that this place has long been in ruins. A few people forgot to forget about it vigilantly. Survivors are eventually found beneath a boulder. They are the staff here, and learned from its mouth. Before that, 3 of the perpetrators were tasked with investigating, and entered the path of the division. Then there was an explosion here. The 3 little ones hurriedly went to investigate, but he was stopped by a group of people at the entrance. See this for the seamounts. From the show, take out a token engraved with the Penglai seal. The man looked startled. He recognized the unaddicted order of Penglai. Then he respectfully invited the 3 little ones into it. The group walked through the corridor. Finally came to the room where the 10,000 law privacy beads were stored. There are no clues around. 3 sprigs decided to enter the Silk Road to investigate his daughter. With the light flickering, several people's primordial spirits were hooked into the 10,000 laws privacy bead, and then a magnificent gold pavilion came into view. But listen to the sea and mountains. There are incompetent seekers on Dulong Island again. The 5 gods of the road shouted angrily when they heard this. Let the stinky head be given to the owner of the Chinji Pavilion. But hear these thousands of supernatural powers apologize. Only it will be clear. The supernatural powers of this place. Most of them are made by Jiang Mingzi, painted through the 3 true realm treasures. The 3 little ones walked into the Tibetan Golden Pavilion. But now the place is empty. Hu Deshanjian slapped his palm into the void under his feet. Then the Silk Road appeared. Many illusory figures. This is the method of concealment in this place. You can call up the most recent scene. The popular point of Jiang is to adjust the monitoring. A few people looked at it. More than 100 prisoners gathered here. They are the strange ones who were summoned by Chinchio. Different squads, and at the moment, the 3 little ones also noticed the Chinchio people who were the leader. The seamount was recognized. These 3 must be with. Before, the ramen mage was all the way. Note, the ramen ritual that is said to be the wind breaking. Just a few people talking. Of the 3, headed by the woman, he arched his hand towards the many seekers. I would like to thank all my colleagues for coming to help. And at this time, the people seeking the Dharma were in the ranks. Someone asked Chinchio and the others how sure they were, and the suspect who carried the raw temperature, whether it is a great supernatural person. But he didn't answer with 1,000 autumns. There are many seekers in the crowd who think highly of themselves. It means that there is no need to worry too much. Among them, there are a lot of young masters and young ladies with natal powers. There is no fear of 1 or 2 great supernatural beings. Chinchio's sword tyrant almost laughed fiercely. Then he led the group towards the Silk Road. Go to every pavilion here. All represent a pearl of privacy. Under the leadership of Chiaki, the group walked towards the area of Dongting Street. The 5 gods explained that the Tao is within the path of the division. The original god can enter and exit the white law privacy beads everywhere. It's just that there will be more consumption of the law and Shoyuan. After that, the 3 little ones also decided to go out of the way. Before leaving, Gao Haoguang turned around and forgot to look at the number of souls behind him. I don't know why. There was always an air here that was very familiar to him. Maybe it's because something from here. Most of them are painted by the treasure of the 3 true realms. But as the practice deepened, especially after the production of the mystery-breaking letter, the familiarity became even more apparent. and it was at the fork in the road where Gao Haoguang left. Among these thousands of souls, a number of souls resembling a letter to break the mystery were issued. For a while, the Qingming and thousands of leaves inhabit the world. Dreams of vested lust began to spread in a big way. Now, the three little ones have returned to the seamount from the Silk Road. Hand the remaining few divine searching runes to Gao Haoguang. With the operation of Hui Tsai, it flows into Wan Fasi. Draw out the surroundings. Instantly enveloped in a strange light. Immediately after that, three figures appeared in this light. That's when it happened. One of the women's meta. God returns from within the Silk Road. Then his eyes flashed. Throw it in front of you. The next moment hundreds of thousands. The puppet appeared in the field of vision of several people. The five great swords are domineering and anxious for these bad guys. I'm afraid I don't want to frame them. But Haishin reminded him. These puppets are the most common kilotube products on the market. You can put the Genshin into it to operate. But it's actually similar to the French dress. It is a one-time load. And it's sold at a dead price. In this regard, Ant Tiger just glanced at Haishin twice. And told him to close his pout. Just a few people talking. Suddenly, from within, all the laws are privately drawn within. One after another, the primordial gods of the Seekers came out. Just for a moment. The room was packed. These are all from within the Silk Road. Bring out the Seekers. They glanced at the puppet from the time of death. After confirming that they were in good condition, they each drilled into it. Then he followed Chiaki and the others out of this place. It's a pity. With only the remaining searching god axe in the hands of the three little ones. It's hard to track where this group has gone. But you can guess it. The three had finished spreading the temperature. It's impossible to tell where the celebration has been. Meanwhile, in Dongting Lake, which is not far from a few people, the middle of the stormy lake, a wooden boat was swaying. The people on the boat clinked glasses to each other. I can see that I am in a good mood. A bowl of spirits in your throat. Chinchio suddenly looked at Yu Taishan with resentment. Complained that his shot was too heavy. He almost lost his own disguise. Yu Taishan Sword Bashan laughed a few times. Said to punish himself with 3 cups. It turned out to be in Fonkai. Chiaki and his party lead the Ball Destroyer team. After walking out of the division, he was ready to cast a great demon array on the spot. The supernatural power condensed by concentrating the power of people. Deposit in the magic weapon. At the place where Chiaki and the others are brought to the goal. And at their current size. Cast the great demon formation. That's enough to wrap an entire city. Even the most powerful don't think about lightening it. And yet at this moment, a thread in the hearts of the group. They sensed the killing intent coming from afar. Right in front of everyone's eyes. There are 2 terrible breaths. And these 2. It is Huang Liang who has been lurking outside Dongting City. Tarzan. Feel the gaze of the Seeker team gathering. The 2 smiled contentiously. Then he threw 2 blows at the people in the city. Feel the terrifying power of this blow. The team of Punishers was horrified. They are now the primordial gods. It's hard to use your powers to the fullest. There is no way to resist such an attack. And yet at this moment, Chinchio and his party resolutely chose to stay in prison, in front of the wizard squad. Even if it is faced with the attack of the great gods, they still stood up desperately. Even if it is sacrificed for righteousness, the last of the last, Chinchio has not forgotten to look back. Towards the crowd behind him, a poignant smile was revealed. This moment, a group of 3 people in the hearts of these Dharma seekers left a strong stroke. There is only a hurry and bitterness of the embarrassed little self. The sound of the wind. Majestic energy exploded in the air. In an instant, the place was reduced to ruins. It was a loud bang. It attracted the attention of the whole city, including the 3 Ash who were preparing to go to investigate, and Chiaki and others. The reason why this export meat trace is staged. It was for the sake of those prisoners. Establish important connections between Dharma practitioners, and then through the causal lines between each other. Spread the temperature in your own body. On the other side, there are 3 small ones on the way home. It also probably fulfilled the purpose of the mage's trip. Such and such. Things here are over. The ancient god hummed a little song happily. It is proposed to depart for the return to the Thousand Machines Museum. Haishan Liao also sighed. Although those mages will definitely not stop there. But the latter one. Isn't that what they can do now? It's just a pity. Those hundreds of elites can no longer avoid the dream of cause and effect. Just between the two of them, Fai Tsai has been silent. For some reason, he always had a hunch. What the mages did, I'm afraid it's more dangerous than they think. This is a captive that can change the fate of others. This blessing, it can turn the good fortune of the lost person into bad luck. Now, just when the tiger god proposed to return to the 1000-base pavilion, he couldn't help but ask himself in his heart, did you really do your best? Although he also knew, there is a great supernatural in the opponent's camp. They are no match for what they are today. But the other side has to do it. It is to increase the strength of the upcoming Wanya Shurxian. The turtle boy couldn't convince himself no matter what. Let's go now. Those mages must have been waiting for something, too. As the owner of the 1000 Machines said, the advent of Manhwa Shurxian requires 2 opportunities. One is that there needs to be more of a presence. Witness the future of the wonders, because it can enhance his strength. And another is, there are major events that have led to the fate of countless people, at least violently affects countless people, hundreds of thousands of years of the kind, because the causality at that moment is the most chaotic. The bondage to Kazuha is the most into, too. So the slaughter is determined. Those mages won't be too far from here. And, at present, it is mainly the people in the Gugwang area who are in difficulty. Temperature is what it means. They want to summon Manhwa Shurxian here. The same foreshadows. There must be a big world brewing in this area. And the so-called big world. The closest to what most people imagine. It is the alternation of the old world and the new world. Maybe it will be with the recent Qing country. Uprisings are taking place everywhere. However, Fai Tsai did not know. 3 days after he had this idea, that is, October 10th, 1911 AD, the mortal world in this Hugwang region set off a revolution that is enough to change the world. But anyway, Fai Tsai felt that he could still do something more. Maybe right now. Not even qualified to participate in the battle of cause and effect. But it's far from the time to say the word best. If you change the rot, the key to the decaying world has been inserted into what has been done. Then he had to be one of the accidental causes and effects of that door opening. And what will be opened will never be the door of all industries. Come to mind. Huizai stopped and said, let Haishan and the tiger god move back to the airport first. And himself, I want to stay and see the results of the fighting law conference. Haishan deeply forgot about Huizai. He knew too well what his little brother was thinking. Without the slightest hesitation, he said he would also stay and see the results. The turtle boy shouted differently. But when he saw Haishan, he pouted and said, there is no period of seamounts left. We'll accept this kind of rebuttal. On the other hand, the tiger god, although he buys in his name, but he wasn't at all. He asked if the two were serious. Borrowed 2 people did not answer. He said it was too dangerous. I'm going back first. There are still cats and bears at home waiting for him to go back and raise them. So he scolded and walked away. But I saw that the 2 of them had no intention of keeping it at all. The great god dodged in anger and pounced on the 2, and asked if you really don't regret it. The 2 said nothing, but all 3 of them knew it in their hearts. The 5 gods were entangled a little. In the end, he chose to stay. In his own words, it is. I can't let Miss Bin's little brothers. No one is covered. Fai Tsai looked at his partner beside him. There are a lot of thoughts in my heart. He wanted to do something with the Dharma clothes that Jiang Mingzi gave him. Those lackeys who feed on people, even if you can only kill one. According to his mother's words, he earned it by doing blood. Do not dry up blood loss. Ultimately, A group of 3 people first transmitted the information back to the 1,000 stages. After that, we discussed how to find a target. And yet at this moment, Fai Tsai saw countless baby lines. It began to spread out from the center of Dongting Lake. At least he didn't have to look for it. The target has already told them where they are. Thereupon, the group treads the waves and approaches the target. According to the understanding of this time, except for the ramen mage who was killed, there are at least 6 targets left. And among these 6, there is also a great magic mage. So the 3 little ones are very cautious. They didn't get too close to the goal. Instead, they stopped 10 miles from them. Then Hui Tsai took out the tiger country that gave the name, and take out a vestment from it. What they have to do is not gamble with their lives to fight. Rather, it brings them some bad luck. With this only 3 stitches that don't have to fight. Bronze engraved life charm. This blessing is Jiang Mingzi. From another patriarch's vows. It is the magic power of the law of cause and effect. You can change the fate of the other party for a while. Doom runs for good luck. Good luck can also turn into bad luck. In his own words, this blessing is somewhat special compared to ordinary precepts. Even he who personally refined this blessing, nor can it be fully realized. The fisherman of the supernatural martial arts is kind enough to send the mermaid to the passerby. It's not people at all who didn't think about it. Rather, it is a group of nirvana masters who feed on human life. At this moment, the 3 little ones are hiding their own breath. Investigate the mage's trails along the way. They plan to use the 3 chastities given by Jiang Mingzi. Cultivating life with Ku. Bring malice to the mage and his party. But you have to find a way to hit them. One of them, Hui Tsai, has already made a decision in his heart. His only concern was, let this line of people be recruited. Will they be able to escape? After all, the means of a great supernatural mage. Not what they can understand now. Between words, the 3 little ones found the source of the causal thread. It's about 10 miles from them. Hui Tsai reminded Ant Tiger, don't look them in the eye. Directions can only be used for light observation. Minimize the probability that the other party may perceive it. After determining the course of the group, the 3 little ones continued to hurry. They were going to get ahead of the mages. Set up a round that is enough to lure them up. Meanwhile, the boat in which Huang Liang and others were riding met a few mortals who were fishing. They asked if they could buy a few fish. When the fisherman heard about it, he was celebrating his success. He generously said that he would send one to a few people. Then he picked the fattest one and handed it to a few people. Keep the 2 small ones to yourself. And the simple and ordinary, they can't think of it. In exchange for this good son, it was a catastrophe. The reason why mages and humans are rivals. It's because of instinct. They have no feelings anymore. In order to be able to survive yourself, even if you are dealing with biological parents, they will also not hesitate to absorb the vitality. On the verge of death, a line of tears slipped down the old man's shriveled face. With a few words, the dried corpse sank to the bottom of the lake. The mage and his party continued to move north. That's when it happened. Huang Liang walked out of the cabin. The gaze is locked in one direction. Forgot for a long time. Just in the square. He sensed a pair of eyes facing him, although the gaze only glanced at the place. But Huang Liang still decided to run the technique himself. Steer the ship out of the place as quickly as possible. The ship had just sailed a short distance. Everyone on the ship was at the same time. A familiar aura was perceived, and break through on the shore not far from them. The remaining half of the head. It was hung on a branch of a tree. The group of swordsmen was angry, but also know that this is clearly a trap. So it was up to Barlow to control the hands of near and far. Proximity. But there was only one head hanging from the scene. This is a clear provocation. But suddenly, Barlow sensed that the chin was broken by the wind. It's like a mark has been carved into it. He hurried closer to what he wanted to see. Huang Liang Jianda hurriedly spoke out to stop it. Claims that this will be exploited. You can put the voice down. 2 pieces of Fu Lu burst out of the soil under the skull. drilled into Barlow's hands with precision. Time goes back a quarter of an hour. 3 small ones. Come to the mage's path in advance and ambush it. To avoid things, the sea and the mountain had to use the left and right head-shaking method. To find out where the group is. Fai Tsai reminded the two that the cause and effect were now almost gone. Miss this opportunity. The next time I want to find them, I'm afraid it's going to be very difficult. The 5 gods listened to it and directly cast an inch of home. And from within, removed the remnants of the windbreaker's head. The 2 of them hung it on a tree branch and buried 2 great magic power clothes under it. One is a 3-pin copper engraved talisman. One is the awakening of the single attack, Hanjinfu. But it's just a poor arrangement. Huitzai seemed to sense something. The moment he turned around, his eyes suddenly became cloudy. Followed by, he saw a figure hanging in the void. Huitzai doesn't know who Cortana is, but there is no doubt that it must be a great supernatural person. After a moment of thought, he dodged to Windbreak's head again. Will awaken Han to conquer. Replaced with a large-scale government of scattered ships. Don't expect much damage to the mage. He's going to make a big scene. The thief was enough to draw the great supernatural one over. You know how terrifying the strength of the great psychic mage is. The heavenly scattered sword array was easily broken by it. At this moment, the 3 little ones only set a trap. He lay in ambush on his side. Wait for the arrival of the mage and his party. The results were not surprising. The ship that travels to the pole. After feeling the breath of the wind breaking, and he stopped, but the people on the boat did not come closer. Instead, he swapped out a monster hand and came forward to check. Otherwise, the strange hand seemed to notice something. He approached Windbreak's head again. It was the cat bear that the tiger deified at the chin of the windbreak. And at the moment when it was close, Gao Haoguang raised his hand and pointed. The next moment, the 2 Fu Lu that had been buried in advance broke through the ground, straight into the head of the near and far. It was already on board the ship when it appeared. Seeing this, the group looked solemn, judging by the slight glance that emanated from this captive. This turned out to be 2 great magic powers. Without the slightest hesitation, 6 mages quickly burst out of the cabin. The light flashed in the tomb of Huangliang. He knew the man who had set up the ambush, at least at the long distance to Barlow. There is a certain understanding of the projection of supernatural powers. Just for a moment, he remembered that he had been in the cemetery before. 3 young people met. So it seems. The windbreak was also planted in their hands. Let's talk about it. Huangliang looked around, looking for the figure of the 3 small ones. This kind of remote fine operation, as long as it's not a great supernatural power, the acupuncture points will not be too far away. The 2 great gods are not completely unfolded, countless to the point where the sword suddenly rose. Smashed the boat in an instant. The surging monstrous sword light, even if it is tens of miles away, it is clearly visible. Spirits whose strength drops. It was quite embarrassing under this witness. The other glance by Sanjit. Tonka even made the blue god red of the auxiliary explode. Attack towards Yu Taishan. But it was perceived. But at the same time that Tarzan dodged and dodged, the spirit turned around in an instant, locked the side of the 8-way. The rest should bear witness to him. There is no way to escape this prodigy. Gao Hao's lightsaber on the shore. Hurriedly beckoned Haishan and the 2 to evacuate. In the testimony on the surface of the lake, suddenly, a mana field appeared. The sword that lingers around. The moment it touched the mana field, it shattered instantly. 3 small ones on the shore who are fleeing in a hurry. This scene was also noted. They saw the figure in the center of the mana field. It can be so easy to break the great divine spell. There is no doubt that he is the great magic mage. Huitzai is even more harmful in his heart. He saw the horror of government all too well, but it was almost instantly broken by that guy. That's when it happened. Huangliang was also aware of a few on the shore. At the moment of his gaze, that's all he has to say. appeared in front of the three little ones. Huang Liang glanced at a few people coldly. The three little ones were refreshed. This was the first time they had confronted the great avatar head-on. The suffocating sense of oppression. The three little ones can't afford to fight against it. At this time, Haishan Liao also remembered. The person in front of him was the Dharma Fighting Conference that day. The young man who obtained the second stone man. The three little ones are ready to fight. But I saw that the person in front of me had no intention of making a move. Instead, he swept his gaze to the void behind several people. And as far as Huang Liang's eyes could see, a man came with his feet in the void. Even if he knows that Huang Liang is a great supernatural person, the people who came were still at ease. But his gaze was always locked on Huang Liang. Obviously, he is also a great god. Huang Liang saw it, arched his hand, said that Fang just met Xiaoxing's eyes. "It's your excellency. I don't know why President Xianwei Wu is here. Stand in the world of supernatural powers. How terrifying is the strong at the bottom of the pyramid. It's just the killing intent that emanates from the confrontation. Let the three little Confucian hells with the acupuncture points in the middle of the gods." Now, after Huang Liang revealed the origin of the great supernatural person, the three small ones are relieved. And Wu Yuanjin behind several people. I also heard the meaning of Huang Liang's words. He stroked his chin. Say something that seems to be a no-brainer. This dude. Do you think cats or dogs are better at catching mice? Huang Liang was a little puzzled for a while. But he still replied softly, naturally it was a dog. Cats love to play. The nature of the prey. As a result, its efficiency in catching mice is far less. If you listen to a dog's 5 words, the corners of the mouth are slightly upturned. Said a little playfully. It's not too nosy for a dog to take a mouse. This is a matter of course. Time goes back a few hours. Wu Yuanjin, after trying the table at the quartet conference, decided to go to the tomb that my sister was dug up by the 9 Swords Gate. Take a look. But when I arrived, I found out. The peak of the hill on which the tomb is located. It has been erased by the trust of God. Wu Yuanjin is not sure whether it was done by the people of the 9 Swords Gate. But one thing is certain. Something terrible must have been dug up here. The other party's caution made Wu Yuanjin straightforward and interesting. Then he took out the stone tree path search rune from the show. The next moment there was a huge crater under his feet. It was covered in brilliant light. But until the light fades, he didn't find the slightest clue. The manufactory here was completely destroyed. Not a single hair was left. 5 Yuan is really angry. So I decided to reward myself with a piece of candy to calm down. Subsequently, he found the pile of corpses that the 3 little ones had left behind. Wreckage. Residues in his stomach were also observed. He is a minion of the first building of the nearby Dongting City. So he found Dongting City again. But just looking out of the city, Gome really wants to see it. This 9 Swords Gate. What the hell do you want to enchant in his realm? Minutes and seconds passed. The rain in the city is also getting heavier. But suddenly I remembered a loud bang that shook the sky, broke the peace in the city. Wu Yuan, true sword backing, laughed a few times. Things seemed to be getting more and more exciting. But the next moment he put away the smile on his face. Then he flew and stood in fear. Just now, did he sense something dirty out of town? And as far as the eye can see, there was a misshapen boat. A young man walked out of the boat and looked at him. Wei Yuanzhen's expression moved slightly. Good guy. This is actually a great magic mage. Watching chess. The momentum emanating from his body was obviously not ordinary. Magical powers are comparable, and the other mages on the ship don't count. One of them is particularly inadequate. After seeing the reality of the other party, Wu Yuan was thinking in his heart. Although the other party is unhappy to make trouble in his realm. But this key is not a small risk. This moment, the president of the first meeting who is not afraid of heaven and earth is not afraid. The thought of retreating rose in my heart. He smiled self-deprecatingly, claiming to be old. Then he turned around and drifted away. And yet at this moment, in the direction of the boat. Suddenly, there were majestic sword cheese. 5 Yuan really forgot about it. He recognized it as a great magic spell. Followed by, he saw the 3 small Ji who fled in a hurry. The corners of his mouth couldn't help laughing. Marvel at these 3 little dolls for being a little timid. 5 Yuan really felt that it was good to be young. Then he decided to wish San Xiaoji to get out of trouble. Huang Liang looked at the person in front of him calmly. Whispered, I really have to take care of it. 5 Yuan is really here. Replied unceremoniously, if it is true, what can you do to me? That's it. Both sides know that there is no room for concession. There was only one war. With the 2 in the representation law lingers. The next moment, 2 fierce killings plummeted. The world here is like a cold winter. And the 3 little ones who are in the center of this killing Xuanwu. It's like falling into a cellar. Although this killing campaign was not directed against a few people, but it was biting cold. But it seems to be able to penetrate through every pore on the body, straight to the deepest part of the hearts of several people. That's when it happened. Gao Haoguang forcibly broke free from the fear in his heart, shouted and walked away. The 3 little ones instantly picked up and broke away from the sand overflow whirlpool. Meanwhile, Yu Taishan and the others behind him also approached. When passing by Huang Liang's side, Yu Taishan asked if he wanted to go together. Give the elders the respect they deserve. However, Huang Liang said that he would kill that. 3 young people are more important. 80% of them will cause more trouble. Yu Taishan listened. There was a regretful depth in his expression. He was eager to see the means by which the immortal leader could be asked. Wu Yuanjin saw this, and his face showed disdain. Then he looked at Huang Liang and said goodbye. Saw Huang Liang raise his hand to take out the relics. Claims that this is an ordinary thing that he carries with him. If he can't be holy, he left it for others as a relic. Say goodbye, Huang Liang will have what in his hands. Xia threw it at the few people who were far away behind him. Unexpectedly, after the 5 Yuan real sword, it was bold and interesting. Claim it's a good habit. Although he doesn't think he will lose to a mage. But he still took out a pen and paper and prepared to write a suicide note. You know how perverted the talent of this old man in front of him is. He ignored the resume. Shoot attacks directly to your opponents. Jack was at the same time as Huang Liang confronted Wu. Yu Taishan and his party also headed. The 3 little ones went away. The 3 little ones noticed instantly. But the speed of these mages is too fast. If this continues, sooner or later they will be overtaken. Yu Taishan Sword Boss said a little playfully. The 3 descendants are really good. I never thought we would meet again. Gao Haoguang listened. In the mind, flashed the old man who appeared at the Dofa festival that day. He was amazed at the audacity of the group. And the other side, Yu Taishan obviously didn't have the patience to play with the 3 juniors. Cat and mouse swimming. As smoke and dust rose from its body. And finally at his side, condensed a strange eagle with a strange number of copper. This is his gifted supernatural power to slaughter the demon eagle. The fork in the road formed by the supernatural powers. Yu Taishan raised his hand and fired several shots in front of him. Meanwhile, the bronze of the magic tree lit up. He stared at the bullet that slashed in front of him. The next moment, the bullet began to blur until it disappeared completely. Then Moying jerked around. Will be the line of sight. Locked onto the few people who came out of the pole. Right in sight. A moment caused by light. The bullet appeared out of thin air on the side of the 3 little ones. Bad time or empty life is everywhere. Towards the unsuspecting 3 little ambitions, he left for food. Create a good sea and mountain therapy and high consumption in the Dharma body. Light senses danger at the first moment. Hanging and hanging dodging. But the tiger god, who had the lowest Dharma body, couldn't dodge. You can only raise your hand to resist. He was not injured. But it still hurts with tears. I saw that several people were hindered in their footsteps. Yu Taishan walked in front of him. The void exhibited more than 1,000 swords. The magic tree lit up again. The next moment, The sword was like a wave towards the three little ones. Fun is inevitable. The five gods hurriedly cast an inch. At the moment when the Dharma is formed, he and Fai Tsai had already gotten into it, and Haishan Liao holds an inch of home. Before the endless sword approached, swap out a paper crane from the shell. As its figure vanished, the paper crane catches the glass beads drawn by the 1-inch family. Dodge! It flew out of the gap in the sword. Such a tacit cooperation. Yao's Taishan couldn't help but admire. The ancient gods in the family urged the sea and mountains. A little faster. Haishan listened. He pouted dissatisfiedly and said Hizai. Number 2 has done his best. And the mage and his party who followed behind the three little ones. Seeing this, he scolded that little ball for cheating. You can still fly. But the group was not in a hurry. Because only the great gods who control the law to the extreme. To be able to do it. Mana regeneration rate is close to cost rate while flying. Those three offspring will definitely not be able to support such consumption. Fly not far. Haishan Liang obviously only thinks about his own situation. So he controlled the paper crane to fly high. Hurriedly saw a knife from the overlord's hoof. Regardless of consumption, a short high-speed flight should be able to keep up with one. No too much nonsense. The group stepped directly on the waves. Chased the ball in the air. Several thunderbolts suddenly fell from the sky behind everyone. The dragon is like a god. Yu Taishan glanced back. He knew that the battle between the little and the great supernatural had begun. Such a duel between the strong. Let Yu Taishan's heart be hot. He was no longer left behind. I want to solve the three little ones as soon as possible. Then go to another battlefield to join in the fun. My dad. He took the knife and threw it into the void in front of him with all his might. Behind him, the trees lit up. It's like trying to record it all. The three little ones also noticed the scene behind them. This time the sword is much stronger than the last one. The expression of the two arrows of the sea and mountain was solemn. The talent of the mage. Prodigies can turn their own attack on the law. Preserve it in the tree. Then it is projected by the tree to other places. Then petrification. Draw the inside too. In front of the eyes of the group. Suddenly, a strange tree appeared. Countless highs are on display from it. The mountains and forests covered by it instantly turned into boiling. This is a demon eagle that has been loved. The tree above its head can record its owner. Prodigies on display. Then project these supernatural powers to your opponent's side. And Shijihua. With the hundreds of journeys to Mount Tai, countless swords slashed towards the paper crane in the air. The sea and mountain birds in the 1-inch house looked a little dignified. The old mage. You can use mana. Directly sawn into so many invisible blades. And the speed and spiritual power of these swords. It's more than several times higher than on the previous wall. At the speed of load number 2, I am afraid that I will not be able to dodge. The voice is deserted. A sharp sound of breaking wind sounded in the ears of several people. The paper crane was cut off by a knife. But at the moment when it was about to disappear, the sea and mountains control the paper crane and throw an inch of home. Then let the five gods send themselves out. A new crane had to be replaced. Otherwise, a few people are afraid that they will not be able to escape today. Meanwhile, Yu Taishan has already dodged and approached. He coldly glanced at the glass beads in front of him. At the same time as its gaze flashed, the sea and mountains also emerged from the 1-inch home. At the moment when its body is formed, Yu Taishan disappeared in place again. The sea and mountains are dusty in their hearts. I sensed that a life-and-death crisis was approaching. Not the slightest. The seamount material forcibly tilted the body of the void to the side, dodged a slash to his neck, but helpless, was still cut off by Yu Taishan. The two Huizai in the 1-inch house were full of anxiety, but when I saw the sea and mountains, my eyes were always calm. The number of hours to the abbot's second line floats from the affected area of the show. Meanwhile, he reached out and caught the severed claw, followed by Raise your leg and kick the inch into the center of the stabbing suit. Even in such a dangerous situation. It's the first time to go to the sea. Perfectly coped with it. It's really quite reliable. The priest and the sword tyrant. They were all surprised by the decision of this Panglai boy. Meanwhile, the sea and mountains have the subline of the exertion. An inch of home has been wrapped. Yu Taishan glanced back. Some disdain. Want to control so many fortune flights at once. Just what little bit of mana you have. Haishin turned back sharply when he heard this. His eyes stared coldly at Yu Taishan. It's as if to say that it's a sea and a mountain below. The next moment, the figure of the sea and the mountain began to blur, then burrow into an inch of home. Meanwhile, the second punishment wrapped around it was lifted up. A total of tree methods were found. A burst of red light began to disperse in all directions. The little man hurried to see him. Raise your hand to summon a bunch of imps vying for help. This is his talent prodigy Yugu Zijuan. A total of 21 imps. It is divided into 7 ancestors. Chase the drama towards the spirit that escaped. The remaining 3 paper cranes. Then there were Ku Liantian and others who intercepted it. Stay where you are with Tarzan. No matter who finds the true fire. He can go to the aid as soon as possible. The other side. After a long time, he chased the paper crane and dived to the bottom of Dongting Lake. And the paper crane is after entering the water. The speed slowed down significantly. It's hard to see this. The sparkle in his eyes became more and more ruely. He seems to be enjoying the cat and mouse game. And yet at this moment, a fish swims in front of the crane. It's just the moment when it's about to collide. The two tacitly reversed direction. Ku Liantian ignored it. The little fish chased straight towards the crane. I don't seem to notice the moment. It's in the mouth of this little fish. It is holding a crystal glass bead. At the same time, an inch of home looked at Hui Tsai and Ant Tiger with a gloomy face. Haishin pouted and said that as long as he could go back to Panglai, not to mention Duan's hand. If the head is broken, it can be connected. Do not get in the way. Use the tree method to seal the severed palm. When the sea and mountain are ready, they tuck it into their sleeves. And asked Hui Zai how the bronze engraved talisman was.